Do you remember as a kid playing tag with your shadows? Did you ever do that? Like one friend would be walking and you'd try to jump on their shadow or like tag theirs and they tag yours. Maybe not. It's an activity that I did and I do it with my kids all the time. Their favorite thing is to stand on my head with their shadow or like take their feet and stand on my shadow head and tell me, I'm standing on your head, mom. Um, and why do I bring this up? Because we do this in the summer when the light is bright, the days are long, and we can see our shadows, which is what makes summer season a beautiful time to do shadow work. We know that you were born magical. We know that you are intuitive, and we know that you are brimming with everyday enchantment. Here at the Sisters Enchanted, we believe in intention, we believe in intuition, and we believe in everyday magic. Welcome in to the Expedition to Soul podcast. Welcome to today's episode of the Expedition to Soul podcast. I'm Sarah, founder of the Sisters Enchanted, and it is summer season. We are on the other side of the longest day of the year, and in our Stay Magic digital magazine, it's a free magazine you can get right on our like social media bios. You can find it, and of course, we'll link it up and whatnot, or just reach out. We'll get it to you. But for the Letha edition, we talked about insight and shadow work. So we teach a model here called the 5-eye expansion framework or expansion spiral. And it's a framework for expanding into whatever is next for you in your life and making space to create that into being. And during the summer season, which our first day of summer just passed, we call this insight. It's the insight season because we are doing our shadow work during this time of year. Now, we're going to get to some misconceptions about shadow work today because I think that there are some misconceptions around it that make us feel like, it's so hard to do. But really, I think one of them is that we want to do shadow work like on dark times, right? Because it's the shadow and it's dark, meh, whatever that means. And I just made a goat noise. Oh my gosh. I have a little bit of a cold and I should not be trying to cackle and sound like a goat instead. So go ahead and just call me Goat Sarah. Anyway, I digress. We don't want to do shadow work in the dark times because it's too heavy. In the darkness, there's so much energy that is already not lit up that it's a great time to ask how we want to feel in the darkness and explore that emotion, but not to do shadow work, not to look at, where am I feeling shame, guilt, resentment. It's really we can bring that light to the darkness through intention setting. And we bring our shadow work to the light of the summer months or to the full moon. The same energy aligns with the full moon energy. So you can read more about this in our Stay Magic magazine if you didn't download that yet. But let's talk about some misconceptions about shadow work for you here today, things you might want to know. So the first misconception about shadow work is that, as I said, that it's done in the dark, right? It's done in the light. Shadow work should really be done in the light. And I think too that one of the methods we teach is sorry, I'm going back and forth here. One of the methods we teach is to do shadow work in a moment, like when things are happening to you. So if you find yourself in an argument, that you can really stop in that moment and think, whoa, what shadow part of me is coming up? But that's something you can do after you've already started acknowledging your emotions, when you are more self aware. And you can kind of switch into that place of self awareness and see that your shadow self is acting out and being present in any moment in time. If you're not there yet, then we really want to do shadow work in the light moments when you're feeling more optimistic, when you're feeling ready and engaged and excited about the future. And the reason for that is because when we're in like an expansive mindset, it's so much easier to be self-aware. It's so much easier to see the things about ourselves that are really keeping us in this cycle, this loop of shame, guilt, resentment, fear, all of these types of shadow emotions that come up for us, they're all part of the human experience, but also don't serve us to get where we want to go. So we want to do shadow work when we can have this sense of play, of exploration and optimism, and bring that with us to our shadow work. Now, this brings me back to a story I was telling you at the beginning of this around playing with shadows. And it's something that, literally playing with the shadow that that's created during the summer months for us, and how I do that with my children. And I did it as a kid. Just recently, we were making shadow puppets in my house, but having that same sense of play when it comes to shadow work and being able to do some shadow work and then step away and go play, do something to release that energy, something youthful and fun. So much of shadow work comes from our inner child, from experiences in childhood. And our inner child wants to play, right? So we want to do shadow work in these months where we can go do that, because so many of us don't get enough playtime in as it is. And we certainly don't do it in the cold, dark winter months. If you live in a place where it gets cold and dark, if you live in Florida or something, maybe that doesn't apply to you as much. But where I am, it certainly applies. And in the summer, we can go for, we're out doing more walks or bike riding or going to the beach or the pool, or we're just outside more or doing gardening, right? And there's all these opportunities to really like play and experience what does it feel like to be self-aware, do some shadow work, and then go nurture my inner child through play, through optimism, through light. So we can do that in the summer months. Another misconception around shadow work is that it's hard or there's an exact framework that you have to follow. And really, nothing about it needs to be hard. I pinky swear. It can be an experience that maybe stretches you, but it doesn't have to be hard. It can be as easy as, goodness, I feel resentful. Where is that resentment coming from? And then if I stay resentful, where is that taking me? Like that questioning path, it can be as easy as that. It doesn't have to be hard. That said, it can be challenging to remember to do it, to remember to look for the moments that sort of bring up the shadow with you, and then aligning that story to the future and what future you're creating. And we help with that in the framework we teach, our 5 eye spiral, because shadow work is built into that framework. But it doesn't have to be hard, right? And there's not a right way to do it. Shadow work itself, there's not a right way. Really, it comes down to self-awareness. And then the third misconception, I think, is that when you do shadow work, you're just done. Once it's done, it's done. There is no one and done in shadow work. That's a false. That's false. Hit the false buzzer. We live in emotional loops, and we might get ourselves out of one loop and then jump into another loop, right? And then maybe as we grow and expand in our lives, something happens where we sort of jump back into the other loop. So these emotional loops are created at a very young age. And what can happen, for example, if you deal with shadow work and shame around money, or shame around not being able to manage your time and show up to things on time, right? And you do some shadow work around that with your job. And then maybe it's 3 years from now and you get a big raise, or you get another job, or maybe you become like a stay-at-home person for some reason. And now this is showing up in another way, and the shame around money or time management is back again, and you just jumped back on that loop in a different point in your life. And now we're looking at it through that new life lens. So shadow work is not one and done. We can do our shadow work, which helps us to see a different future and step into that future. Once we're in that future, though, we might find ourselves needing to set a new intention, having to live a different way, having to do that shadow work again, right? And then we do it again and again and again. And that's why we're always expanding. That's what expansion's about, right? That's what growth is about. But it is not a one and done thing. So those are 3 misconceptions about shadow work for you. One is that we do it in the dark. Absolutely not. We do it in the light. We want to release that energy through play, optimism, bringing those light experiences into our life. There's not an exact way to do it, not an exact framework, and it's not one and done. You're going to do it more than once, particularly as you grow. So if you're doing the same shadow work again and again and again with the same instances, I think that's pretty clear evidence that you're on the same loop still and you've not grown to a different one, right? Because when you grow the loop, you might get into a different part where you're investigating a different emotion. So if you're constantly feeling resentful of people, or you're constantly feeling ashamed of yourself, or you're constantly feeling guilty, or you're constantly feeling angry, right? When you get through that shadow work, that emotion will shift, but then you might notice another one where you're feeling X way or whatever. And then the more you do this, the more you do this work, eventually you will expand into more of a neutral body. I'm great evidence of this. I will say that, it takes quite a bit to really get me unneutral, I guess. What would you say? Deneutralized? I don't know the word I'm looking for at this point in time. And though when I see a shadow creep up, I immediately can lock into it and say, oh, where is this coming from? Because it's showing up now in a new way for me, and do it so much faster. So it does get faster the more that you do it and the more you expand into yourself. So this summer for me, and shadow work and embodying the summer energy and this idea of insight and inquiry and how I'm looking inward, uh, I am looking at for myself where I'm refusing fun and joy. That is my shadow work. Where am I refusing fun? Where am I refusing joy? So, in particular, the hard things in my life, the things that just keep feeling like, when will this get easier? I'm asking the question, well, where am I refusing to let it be easier? Where am I refusing to have joy in that area? Where am I refusing to have fun in that area? And why? Right? Where is there a story I'm telling myself? And that's what I'm looking at for shadow work this summer, really feeling the sacral and solar plexus energy, expanding into it whenever I walk into a virtual room or a physical room, and just that playful nature, that lit up solar kind of nature, and the watery nature of the sacral with the solar of the solar plexus, and this confidence, desire, energy. Like, how am I illuminating that and having fun and passion? And reminding myself too that, all around us, there's evidence of things that grow even in the hardness, especially in the summer. The summer, there's so much evidence of what we can become, even when things feel really challenging in the summertime. So when we see flowers growing right between rocks, right? And we see the trees that are just taking up all the damn space they want to take up without worrying about how much space that is. Their roots are just coming up, their limbs are big, and they're just doing their thing, growing in the space that they want to take up in our environment. And like I said, those flowers that are just creeping up through rock crevices, the clouds that just move and shift as they will. Nature is reminding us all the time of the fact that we can do these things. We can embody this next energy. And this is the season to be supported in doing that. So this is the season to be supported in doing your shadow work. All right. So I want to hear from you. What kind of things are you working on right now? How are you embodying this light energy during the summer season? How is shadow work playing in that for you? Does it feel like it's challenging to do shadow work? Do you feel like you could use some support in getting this done, or recognizing where to start, or rewriting your stories? Because we've got tools for that. So just let us know. We'll point you in the right direction. But yeah, those some misconceptions for you. And where are you doing your shadow work this summer? Where are you bringing in that playful energy, that optimism, that light, and allowing it to really support you on your journey as well? And if you want to know more about this, of course, you can check out our free Stay Magic digital magazine. And we have a program starting at the end of July. We are doing our expansion archetypes and expedition to soul class all in one, with tons of guest teaching from our astrology teachers. Anna's coming in, Nick and Kiara. Kelly from Holistic Witchery is teaching on candle magic. It's going to be really fun. We've never done this before, and it starts July 17th. So we'll put the link for that too, for you to check that out as well. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, thank you so much for listening in. I appreciate it. I hope that you have an enchanted rest of your day. If you liked this episode of the Expedition to Soul podcast, please rate, review, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it will really help us spread everyday magic, intention, and intuition to the masses, and helps us so much as a small business. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. There are new episodes every Tuesday, and astro forecasts for the week ahead every Friday. If there's any topics you'd want to hear, anything you want us to dive deeper into, shoot us an email
at magic@thesistersenchanted.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening and being part of the community here at the Sisters Enchanted. And we'll see you in the next episode.